Honestly, it's probably not even 3%.
And
Okay,
then I
so
think something I forgot to tell you is I
yeah.
do have the Infantry 10% health Zenith skin.
Oh, okay.
So
Uh,
that was another reason why I was leaning towards
yeah,
a third infantry march.
yeah.
Just
There was
because,
a time, right? There was a time wherein other like lecture school and some other content creators would recommend going that route, but I think the maybe it changes with the commander release cycles, right? Like Belisarius is not overly powerful, but
yeah,
there was a couple of generations where the power creep was so noticeable that it just blew that meta out of the water, right? So like I would say like two years ago you can make that argument. Like it's not even an argument now, where like you can go 3, 4, 5 one troop type and make it work. Besides maybe cavalry, but even now, right? Like you go 5 cavalry, you're missing out on Luce, right? You're missing out on Ziel and Herman.
yeah,
You know, like depending on this like second, it's you're missing out on so much. And like the fifth, like you have to run Saladin as part of the 5 march, right? You have to run XY, you have to run like Justinian, and
yeah.
it's noticeably worse. And even if you get like like a 15% health boost to it, like does it actually cover all the debuffs and all the stuff you're missing? Like I don't think so,
Mhm.
right? um yeah, but like since you have 2 infantry, right? If you do the 4 and 2 of your marches are infantry, so like half your marches are benefiting from, you can literally do the math, right? Because if you get 10% health and 10% health, and then you lose 5 and 5 of something else, which is usually like archer will lose 5 of this, cav will lose 5 of this. You're gaining 20% health, and you're losing 10% of a worse stat, like a like 5% attack, 5% defense on your archer
Yeah.
cav, right? It's worth it. So like that's still a positive, but I wouldn't use that as like the decision, like the factor that makes you go 3 or more in.
Gotcha.
Okay, and I get it. It kind of hurts, right? But like, really, what you're like thinking about right now, based on what you're telling me, is like, okay, you're like benching Tariq and then Alex, right? Because if you're running what's on the screen here, Gorgo, Luce, Juan, Scipio, then really like commanders that are in the conversation is Tariq, probably the main one, and then
Yeah.
Alex, which really I've tried Alex with Scipio, I tried Alex with Guan, didn't work that well. And all of a sudden with Luce, he's like a superstar, right? So then is it Alex or is it
And
actually Luce?
would you even say that Luce Alex is better than Gorgo Luce?
I've
Or
so I've made a video about this. I personally think Luce Alex is the best March in the game. Um,
is
it,
that even with using arch formation?
that's using arch formation, and I have
Okay.
Greatest Glory and Ring with it. I don't know if you're familiar. Luce's expertise gives you an extra 25%. So basically, every 4 turns, you get an extra attack, right?
Hmm.
When you get an extra attack, you also get extra rage. I forgot the exact rage number, but when you get an extra attack, it's essentially like a horn, but better. Because a horn, you get 50 rage. I think when you get a bonus attack, don't quote me on this, I want to say it's 70 something rage. So another way to think about it is uh, if you put a horn on Luce, every 4 times that it procs, one of the 4 is actually going to go to waste because it's going to severely overrage, and it's not worth it.
Mm.
That's why I
That was
did.
a
Yeah.
that was another thing. I'm not sure that the accessories are necessarily on the best marches.
Yeah, like right now, if I was doing this like on the screen, right, I would actually put the lucky coin with Guan,
Guan.
just
Yeah.
because really, off the top of my head, I can only think of like Constantine and Guan that benefit from a shield, right? And then even then, it's probably not worth it. But since you already have it crafted, it's something where if it was me personally, I don't know if you heard this quote before, like I think the quote is like, "What must be done eventually can be done immediately." Like I would just dismantle it. You know, I would see it more as like, hey, I have 60 legendary mass now, right? And then I could just pivot into something else. Like the
Yeah.
dagger, even the what is that called? Pendant of the Eternal Night, where you get 5% skill damage, right? That still has like a clear like you know, maybe it's not as good as a horn or a ring, but it's still like it's 5% skill damage. You know, it's still like solid.
Yeah.
Whereas like a 500 damage factor shield every whatever, like I don't even know the actual percentage, right? Like it's you can put it on Guan, but then Guan's probably going to get benched, you know, end of July, right? Then what are you going to do
Yeah.
with it? So that's something, maybe keep it for now, maybe for the next ABK, and then at some point just cut the core rather than like continue that. I would actually just dismantle that, you know, and so you can just kind of move on to something else. If I was going to do the accessories for the Lucia March, I would do a Greatest Glory and a ring. And then for the second infantry, I mean, depending on whatever it is, right? It could be something where maybe like the benefit from a shield greatly, like, but it's just a horn and ring. Same thing with the archer march, and same with the cat march. Like the dagger, I think if you do the math, because essentially what's happening is if that debuff procs, right, your thinking is, okay, if I get, I forgot the exact, is it a health or defense debuff? I actually just blanked out. Regardless, it's one of the defensive stats, right? It's how many marches are hitting it, right? Because if you have one march and you debuff the target with whatever the debuff is, and you just have one march hitting it, like I would just straight up take a ring over it, because the ring comes out, math comes out to about 5% all damage, right? But when you have 5, 6, 7 marches hitting it, right, and you have that many marches benefiting from the debuff, you can start making a case for something else. So definitely keep the dagger around, but it's just something where it benefits some more marches you have, right? Because if it's someone else, unless someone is way out of position, people are just targeting whatever. They're not necessarily always going to be targeting the same thing. But if you have multiple marches, you're always targeting the same thing. Okay. Now, as far as equipment, so anyways, any question with the commander? So I talked about like the lazy river thing, right? Like I think Herman is the second best commander in the game, right? He has it all. He doesn't do as much damage as ZL, but I think these three things are very necessary, right? You need AoE, you need ability to boost skill damage, unless you're a smite commander, and then you need march speed, right? Now, if you think about Boudica, she doesn't have either. So her kit looks really good, but for most people that have used Boudica, it's just very frustrating. For someone whose kit looks so good, why does she just seem to not perform as well as the other commander? It's because she doesn't have any of the three, right? Now, I did run ZL Boudica as my main archer march when I was running some marches his last KVK. It did surprisingly well. I ran Boudica ZL the KVK before, and ZL primary does way better than Boudica primary.
Got it.
Right? I think it's like, and I figured this out for almost like, because like Lucia primary does way better than Alex primary, right? I think you want to get that 5 target AoE off, or like the AoE off a lot more. So even though if Boudica hits the target, they take 35% more skill damage, it's not worth it, right? Because sometimes you get the first proc off, but not the second, where you just want ZL as a primary. Okay. Now, even though Herman is really good, I don't think it's worth it for you to backwards invest, because right after the infantry cycle, right, sometime between like 70 to 90 days on average, then the archer is going to come out. Now, at that point, hopefully you saved up enough. So if the new archer pairs great with ZL, then you invest in the new archer. If not, then you invest in Herman, right? So you see how like you don't kind of swim upstream, you kind of just save for the next one to come out. And ways to really mess up your account is when you're already gold head starves, and then you're trying to get these commanders that are actually really good now. Like Herman's really good now. It's just the cost that the amount of setback you'll get from going for Herman, while trying to upgrade your cap march, and then these new commanders are going to come out, and then you can't actually catch up. That's actually more frustrating than just using ZL Boudica, which is actually a really good archer march for what, 4 months, where you're ahead.